like that's the rocket that's going to go, like the first rocket that's actually going to go and land on the moon, I think since 1969, I believe. So we got to see that. I think it's still there. I think it's been postponed again for like fuel leaks and stuff.
I wonder how that. All right, guys. Hey, welcome back again here to the Dom and Brian Show. Brian, you guys just got back from the Kennedy Space Center not too long ago, correct?
We did.
Yeah, how was that?
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. In fact, that was a hidden gem that one of our good friends had told us about. So after we did our Disney trip, we did a little quick cruise to the Bahamas, and then we did Kennedy Space Center.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. It was one of those places that you could literally spend all day if you wanted to.
Okay.
And so obviously I'm not like a science junkie,
sure,
but I was even captivated by just the history that's captured there at Kennedy Space Center. So.
Yeah. So what kind of stuff do they have down there?
So they have literally everything.
Really?
You get to see, so as part of your tour there, they got a lot of, like a lot of virtual rides that you can do where you're like going into Mars, going to see Venus or the moon. So kind of a lot of those similar VR rides that you would see like at Disney World.
Okay.
But then the history there, they've got all the different spacesuits that had been created from when did the space program begin? I think it began in like 1965,
in the 60s.
66. So like every spacesuit that was designed, you can go up and touch moon rocks like that are from the moon. Yeah.
They let you touch them?
They let you touch them.
No shit.
In the museum. You get to see a lot of the rockets and space shuttles that have actually gone up into space and then have come back. They're now on display. So you get to they're hanging in hangars and you get to see those kind of artifacts.
That's kind of cool.
A lot of it's virtual too, in the sense you watch video. So the Challenger, when that accident happened, you get to sort of virtually meet all of the people who perished in that horrible accident. Then they kind of tell you why that space shuttle blew up.
Right.
The cool thing that I thought was you actually get to see the building where they build space rockets.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like huge. Like I think you can fit, I think on the tour they said 4.5 Empire State Buildings in the building. So this is where they build every rocket, every spaceship are built right on site. And then they have these machines, and we'll share the picture of it, that's called the crawlers. And these machines are, I want to say they're like $600 million machines, and it's what they put the rockets on in the building center that they take them out into the pads. And so these machines go 1 mile per hour. That's the speed that they go.
Yeah.
It's probably, I want to say, half a football field in size on all these tracks. 2 guys drive it, 2 guys drive it, and that's what they take the rockets out. So the cool thing that we got to see when we were there is the space shuttle that's getting ready to go to the moon.
Really?
Is on launch pad 39, and you couldn't go out close to it. They within 4 miles, you can't get near these space rockets. But that was the one that's been postponed, I want to say 3 or 4 times.
Right.
And we got to see that rocket. The bus stopped.
That's cool.
They showed you that's the rocket that's going to go, the first rocket that's actually going to go and land on the moon, I think since 1969, I believe. So we got to see, see that. I think it's still there. I think it's been postponed again for fuel leaks and stuff.
Right. I wonder how that's kind of holding up with all the hurricane thing that just happened. Right?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Well,
and it's amazing. So when they launch those rockets, no one is within 4 miles of the rockets.
That's crazy.
Because if you're within the first 2, I forgot what they said. I want to say it's within the first 2 miles, you would die from the heat.
Really?
Within 3 miles, you would die from the sound. Because it would shatter your eardrums and it's that loud.
Holy
and
cow.
So right next to the big building where they build the rockets is where they, the movies you see where it's the 5 layers of computer systems where they're all saying go, system launch, go, fuel, go. That's where they sit right by the building facility.
Okay.
And I want to say it's 4.5 miles away for safety reasons.
Which is incredible, right?
It's incredible.
Because you can see the rocket, right?
You can see it.
You can see it. So that's how massive that thing is, right?
It's huge. And so you see these rockets even that have been up into the moon, and you just don't realize how big they are, how big the rocket is, and then how tiny the apparatus is where the astronauts like sit.
Right, the shuttle part. Yeah,
They're not made for big men and women. Like
No.
in fact, I think I tried to, they have like a mock one. I tried to get in it and I was like, this is going to take me 10 minutes to get in it and I probably won't get out. So I'm just going to let my kids go in.
right.
But it was pretty amazing. Just some of the facts that you heard. We got to see the Jeff Bezos. So his site is just right off of Kennedy Space Center. So where he built his rockets that have gone up, into the outer space and come back within 10 minutes or so, like all his stuff is right there.
Right.
I think they contract with NASA to like have the crawlers take their rockets out. But I mean, it's amazing. I'm not a outer space junkie.
Sure.
But just the history and the intelligence of men and women that can
make that stuff happen.
that can create these rockets that they know won't burn up when they go into the atmosphere, and they can, I forgot how many pounds per square inch of fuel it's just amazing that we have people in our country that know think at that level that I wouldn't even know how to even, it was hard for me to even fathom.
Right. Absolutely. So now do they talk about like Elon and Bezos?
So at this one they didn't, other than they showed us some of their facilities where these guys are building, because they have to build so close because these rockets get built in the same facility where you can fit like 3 or 4 Empire State Buildings. So yeah, they're all built there right on site, and they bring these crawlers in. So all those guys have their facilities all right around Kennedy Space Center.
Okay,
but the security was pretty tight, obviously, because especially now that's I guess that's another branch of our military, the Space Force. So I don't know how many of those men and women are like located on Kennedy Space Center.
Right.
But yeah, it was pretty remarkable to see some of these real rockets that have been into outer space.
That's cool. Did they have like the moon rovers and stuff like that they had, initially went up there? Did they?
They did.
Mars rovers, stuff like that.
Yeah. And so when they talk about that stuff, like they were talking about why the moon is so important right now, is they're saying that's going to be like the launch pad for when we send humans to habitat to like Mars.
Right.
Like the moon is going to be like the spot where we go to sort of
refuel,
get ready, and then from there it's sort of like, if you're going to go to Kansas City from St. Louis, you may take a pit stop in Columbia, right, to go to the bathroom.
Sure.
Like that's what they're saying the moon is going to be to us. That's going to be the spot where people will be to sort of go like, okay, this is the first leg of the trip when we finally, supposedly, we're going to live on Mars one day, I guess.
Yeah, see, and that's crazy town, right? Like, to really sit down and think about one day, I mean, I don't know, probably in our lifetime, somebody's going to try to go to Mars.
And so it's, it's whatever, it's 25 million light years away. I don't know what it is, but like I think in those kind of terms, and I'm like, my brain can't comprehend that.
I'm like, this isn't Star Wars, people.
No.
Like,
and you think of these, these rockets that fly to the moon, and they're going 17 to 25,000 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And so then how do you go 25 million miles on one tank of fuel, but they said too, in some of these videos that we watched at Kennedy Space Center, they were like, well, it's important for us to know, I guess Mars was sort of habitable at one point. It had ponds. They can tell that it had ponds, and
I think they found like water on there, like frozen water.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
so they're saying it's important for us to go there to figure out what happened to Mars so that we can ensure that doesn't happen here on Earth.
Yeah.
Kind of like you probably heard, I think NASA, they launched that little capsule up into space this week to hit that meteor to see if they could knock it off course.
Right.
Not that it was going to hit Earth, but to see like, okay, if God forbid some meteor is coming, like if we hit a meteor going 15,000 miles an hour, like how much of a trajectory change can we make on that?
Right.
So it's all those things that you just think about, like, why are we wasting tax dollars flying to the moon again? Well, I think there's so many implications as to why it's important that we go there and figure out what happened to other planets in our solar system to ensure that Earth, is around for another 4,000 years, hopefully.
Right. So if given the opportunity, Brian, would you consider going to outer space?
I think it would. I would.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think I would.
Yeah?
I think right now when they sent up the Star Trek guy and a few of those guys with Jeff Bezos, I mean, what is it, like $250,000 for the I think, what is it, 8 minutes round trip, 11 minutes round trip.
Right.
So obviously that's a different class of individual that can, but I'm
absolutely.
sure just to be like weightless for 2 minutes
Right.
and to see Earth from, you can see, it was kind of like everything in life. You can see pictures of the Grand Canyon until you see it. You're like, oh, the Grand Canyon's huge. Your history book shows it to you and you're like, oh, it's a big, it's a big gap.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Earth looks so beautiful with your own 2 eyes versus the plethora of pictures that we've seen of what Earth looks like from outer space. So yeah, I think I would.
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't know, man. It would be cool to go see, right? Like to do it. I mean, it would be
a risk.
It would be a pucker up scenario.
It would be a risk. Well, it kind of reminds me almost, like of, what was it? The late George Bush, he went parachuting every year. And so I think he went parachuting when he was 85 years old. Yeah. I'm sure it looks beautiful.
Oh, absolutely.
That one I don't know if I could do. Like, I don't know if I could jump out of a perfectly good plane. I could jump out of a plane if I had to. Sure. If it was going down. But a perfectly good plane, like, I don't even think if I was strapped to someone I could do that.
No. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for people that can afford that. Like, that's an experience that only a select few have ever had. And so, yeah.
That's cool, man. So what else did they have there at the Kennedy Space Station? I mean, you got to touch the moon rocks. What other kind of artifacts and things like that did they have?
So lots of spacesuits. They had a lot of like computer virtual space shuttle cockpits that the kids could get in. In fact, I got in some too, just to sort of see, you get in these cockpits and there's literally a wall like this of just buttons and instrument panels.
Right.
So you got a lot of sort of that firsthand accounts of like, this is what a space shuttle felt like in 1971. And then you'd fast forward to like, what is the guy that owns Amazon? Like, what does his look like?
Right.
Looks totally different, right? There's touch screens everywhere.
Sure.
So you got to see a lot of that, a lot of the virtual reality rides of like going to Mars, what it's like to land on Mars. They had a whole outside area where it was the space rockets that are able to go up and then land back in the ocean and or like self-land. So they had a lot of those there where you could see just how tall they are.
Right.
So just a lot of cool artifacts. It was, again, for me, I think the highlight was it was seeing the rocket that's going to go to the moon.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty
because you see it on TV, right? You turn on the morning Today's show, ABC News, like they're talking about this rocket.
Sure.
And I was like, oh, I actually got to see it. It was 4 miles away. I could see it from a bus.
Right.
But like that rocket's going to carry, 5 or 6 individuals from the United States up to the moon.
Right. Now that one's just going to go up and go around the moon and come back, right? I think that's the plan.
I think that's the plan for that one. Yeah, I think that's the
Slingshot.
plan. Yeah. Because I don't think we've been to the moon since...
We have not been. Nobody's been back to the moon since the big moon race of what? I think it was 1969, I think it was.
And then I want to say because the space program ended like in 2010, and it's just now kind of being reinvigorated. Right. And in fact, they're naming, and I don't know the name of the rocket, but it's like all these rockets are named after like Greek gods.
Sure.
And so the rocket that's going to go up to the moon is like the Greek brother of, I want to say, the Challenger that blew up. So they're kind of paying homage to that crew that tried to make it to the moon and couldn't. And so yeah, again, for me, it's just the scientific mathematical geniuses that can figure out, how to build these structures and how to ensure these structures are going to make it through an atmosphere that they don't know how it's going to react to.
Right.
And then the astronauts and the pilots that are in there that have to, I think it said each of these astronauts has to go through like 5,000 hours of like what ifs.
Sure.
What ifs.
Right.
So they put them in these simulators and like they start to take off and it's like, oh, this breaker tripped. What do you do? And so there's these books that are, 2,000 pages a piece that these astronauts have to just memorize of like, okay, if this thing goes wrong, they've got to. So the incredible speed in which you have to think.
Right.
And you're under pressure, right? So if you don't do the right thing, you're going to die.
Yeah, it takes a special kind of human to be a
astronaut.
astronaut.
I think about my job. If I make a mistake, nobody's going to die. I don't have 2 minutes to make a decision or like I'm going to die and all my crew's going to die. And so just the amount of training these men and women go through to be astronauts it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. That's astounding, man. I mean, I would love to go down there and check that place out.
It was pretty cool.
It sounds like it's pretty epic. I mean, it's great that you got to see the space shuttle that's getting ready to go, up and around the moon.
And it's like 45 minutes from Disney.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're going to go to Disney
Easy.
or Universal, like it's all right there in Florida.
Build an extra day in, right?
Yep, and that's pretty much what we did.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be kind of good to kind of wind down that way, especially for the kids to kind of sit there and look at and see and be able to take that kind of stuff back to school. I'm sure, Jace has told his teachers and Brees told all the, the teachers are all about it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I felt like it was sort of a hidden gem. Like we wouldn't have known about it unless our friends had told us about it.
Right.
Because it obviously it's not a part of Disney or that sort of area there. But yeah, just kind of a hidden, reasonably priced gym where you could sort of see history.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where too, it's like, I mean, honestly for myself, I never would have thought that I could go and do something like that. You know what I mean? So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Everyone, especially too. So I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but some people still don't believe that we've been to the moon.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that think like, those landings by Armstrong and were all done in a California movie studio. Yeah. And I guess I can kind of understand, people are like, well, hey, why did we go in 1969 and we never went back? Mm-hmm. What was the point? Well, obviously we were in a space race with Russia to see who was more superior and who could get there the quickest. And, but for me, it was just not that I'm one of those people, like I've always thought we've gone to the moon, but it was just kind of like solidifying, like there are just so many bright minds that go into sending just 3 people up for, X amount, or there was also a lot of information on the space station, of which I think there's, 15 or 16 different partnering countries that have folks up there. And so, it was kind of a cool too, to talk to my kids about, this isn't just being a good pilot. Like these folks are scientists and they're engineers and they're mathmaticians. And like, it takes more to be an astronaut than just,
hey, I want to be
flew commercial airplanes for a while. Now I'm going to go ahead
and go and fly this aircraft, spacecraft up to outer space and have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy. So yeah.
Yeah, so if you're ever down in Florida, I would highly recommend just checking it out, even if you're not a space junkie. Yeah. A lot of homage, too, to John F. Kennedy, obviously, because it's named after him, because he was really the president that sort of put us on that trajectory of, almost kind of back in that spirit of the United States when it was like, hey, this has never been achieved. Let's do it. Let's be the best, and let's be the first.
Yeah.
So it kind of paid homage, too, to sort of his foresight as a president to sort of say, hey, this is... I get we, as an American public, we may not understand it, but we're going to be the best at it, and we're going to get there before, our counterparts.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let us know, guys. Let us know what you think, and let us know if you've ever been to the Kennedy Space Center. Till next time, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.